Hey everybody, welcome to the Cardone Solutions Podcast. I am the host, your host of the Cardone Solutions Podcast. My name is David Bradley, Senior Sales and Marketing Manager with Grant Cardone. What do we talk about on the Cardone Solutions Podcast? Well, we're going to talk about a whole bunch of stuff. But we like talking about Grant Cardone's content for sure. I'd say 75, 85, maybe even 95% of what we do here is 100% free. So what I like to do is I like to take articles that Grant has written, blog posts that he has done, maybe a YouTube video here and there, and then just really make sure that you're pulling lessons out of it, because everything we do has value in it. So I just want to make sure that you're getting the full value from it. But I also like talking Cardone shop with other folks. And so what we did today, I got a chance to sit down with a guy that like 6 degrees of separation. Like I've known who he is. We've probably crossed paths, but we've never actually sat down and talked together. So Joe Ingram, he is the host of the Sales Genius podcast. He is a BDC performance coach, works with car dealers. He's been in the automotive space forever. He's taken a couple dealers up to 1,000 units a month with just digital advertising. So the guy knows what he's doing, but he's also a huge fan of Grant Cardone's. And so he was referred to me by my good buddy Anthony the Hitman Camacho, who's also been a guest on the Cardone Solutions podcast. But yes, so last week Joe and I started talking, and we realized, hey, we've got some good content that we should be able to share with other people. There may be a podcast in the conversation. So we started bouncing some ideas around, some topics, and so it ultimately led to this book right here. This is If You're Not First, You're Last. This is the third book that Grant wrote. This is the book that got him to become a New York Times best-selling author. But there's something very, very special about this book. And what that is, I'm going to tell you about halfway through this conversation I have with Joe. But we decided on doing this. 3 lessons from If You're Not First, You're Last, specifically for a BDC department. And so what we found that to be a very interesting thing. And so what we decided to do is I'm going to grab the book and I'm going to pull my 3 out, and he's going to pull his 3 out, and then we'll converge and see what we come up with. So without further ado, allow me to introduce my buddy, Joe Ingram, the sales genius.
Okay, and we're live. David Bradley here, Joe Ingram here.
Joe Ingram here, and David Bradley over there.
That's right. We're going to be looking at what did we decide on our title? 3 lessons for BDC departments from Grant Cardone's If You're Not First, You're Last.
That is absolutely correct. But I think you need to say it with the Ricky Bobby style, right? Because if you're not first, you're last.
If you ain't first, you're last.
I thought it was absolutely perfect when Grant came up with that title. I was like,
yeah.
I could totally relate to that.
Right. And the timing.
Around, baby Jesus.
That's right.
Taco Bell. Yes.
And the timing of the release was perfect as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because that movie had just taken off. And so.
All right. So we're doing 3 lessons for if you are not first or last for your BDC.
That's right. So if you got a BDC department, this is for you. And here's for those of you listening at home. Joe and I we have not pre-discussed this. We just decided that I would give my 3, he'd give his 3, and we'll see if maybe our 3 somehow have some synergy.
Absolutely. And for those that are going, what the heck is a BDC, right? Business Development Center. So these are the people whose job it is to follow up, do all of the legwork, and get customers into your company.
Now, do you believe that also is part of the internet department? Because back in the day, those were sort of separate.
Yeah, so they were separate. I will tell you what's funny is being known as the BDC genius, right? And that's what I go around the nation doing. I still think a properly run BDC can make the dealership very profitable. But I also know that if we treated our sales department like BDCs, then you wouldn't need an actual BDC, because your sales department would be developing their own business and bringing the people in and going from there. And it's just, again, there's a lot of things, especially in automotive, where we tend to say, hey, if this isn't your strong point, we'll hire somebody else for it, instead of sharpening the knives on the other side,
right.
Or at least giving the process that's going to hold everybody to what we need to get done.
Once Grant, one of the first lessons or early lessons I learned from Grant was that your outflow should be senior to inflow.
Yeah, absolutely. I tell
So,
everybody, you got to dial for dollars, and the inbound call is gravy.
yeah, right.
Right.
And you should never be dependent on that. So for me, a BDC has always been about just adding wood to a fire that should already be burning.
Absolutely. And see, it's gotten away from that through the years, where instead of just having an outbound team, they're actually taking a lot of inbound opportunities as well. And it's that's why when I look at this, so when I was going through the book, I was like, that's right. This is so great for sales departments as well as BDCs, but we're going to focus it on the BDC. So that actually changed up several of my three, right? My top 3 lessons that I went through. I was like, oh, no, it's all about the BDC people and what it is they're doing. But that's what again, a good book means you can read it multiple times and get a new lesson each time based on your growth.
Amen to that. Okay, so what was the first one you got? What was the first one you came up with?
All right, so the first one that I'm looking at, right, and I got my book here. It's here. Past client reactivation. That was my first one, and that's because going through, you look at it. So I'm going to quote something out of the book, and then I'll give you the spin that I've put into place after reading it and going through. So the big key, right? Let's reactivate it. So it says reactivating past clients mean contacting each person to whom you have sold and provided a service before, but with whom you are not actively working at this time. And then the big part right here, it says this is not an option. It must be done daily. Right. And again, that's where you stop and you look and go, hey, this isn't a good thing. But if I only do it once every week or so, but it says, do not spend your time organizing or qualifying the list. Make calls, organize later, and never ever qualify. And I know that's huge when you look at in the dealership world in a BDC. That's absolutely huge that nobody is actually doing what they're supposed to. It says during periods of immense economic negativity, your biggest benefit is the fact that your competition, right, is doing very little about this solution. And these are people that already know you, like you, trust you, and have given you their money in some fashion or not. And nowadays, I mean, look at the timing, right? When this book came out, there was no such thing as a gold digger for e-leads or auto alert, right? Or all these other revenue radar at Dealer Stock, all these different companies that go in and mine your data and give you these people and the probability. But what I've noticed, right, and one of my clients the other day, they pulled up one of the systems, they're looking at it and they go, oh, well, this one only scores a 75 as a possibility of buying out of 100. And they're like, so I'm going to go look for the other ones to dial. And I was like, don't qualify these people. You don't know anything that's happened to them in the last 3 years.
Yeah.
You don't know how many people are in their actual household that would need a car. Why are we pre-qualifying? Don't pre-qualify. Just click on the list and start dialing. Dial, send your email, text, do all that. And that's what I look at and say. So that was the first one that I said, I got to get everybody out there to understand this and go through. So I throw it now back to David Bradley and say, what would be your first one?
The first thing that I came up with actually in the book is at the end. And so Grant talks about having a freedom financial plan. And if anybody's reading along or wants to read along at home, it's on page 181. But the quote that I found was this: a true financial plan should clearly state your monetary goals. It should outline exactly how you're going to create surpluses of money, what you want to do with the surpluses, and how to manage and invest that money. A plan suggests that you're doing something to make things happen. It's not a historic evaluation of what has been done already. That's a budget. Plan means a method of achieving an end, a strategy of how one is going to stay viable and solvent as a household or a business. A budget is a list of those things on which you're spending money. So whether you're a BDC manager, whether you're the general manager, whether you're a salesperson, like, why are you showing up every day?
Amen.
And I remember whether it was me on the floor, me on the phone, me working internet leads, that if I didn't have a solid set goal in place, not just how many units I'm going to sell and how much money I want to make, but what I'm going to do with it and where I want to be in 20 years, it's the make or break point between making that call when they've only got a 75% rating, or right, because now you want a rep that shows up for a paycheck or to punch a clock, or do you want somebody who's on a freaking mission? right?
Absolutely.
And
I want a mission.
yeah,
A
exactly.
mission attached to a paycheck. Yeah.
You know, and most folks, you know, especially when, you know, when you're hiring, in this day and age, you get a lot of people that have learned just enough about money to think that a steady paycheck is an okay thing.
Correct.
Where, you know, 75% of Americans are living paycheck to paycheck. And one of the things I always tell my clients is, if you're in that percentage, then my job right now is to get you out of that percentage as quickly as humanly possible.
Correct.
You know,
I tell people all the time, I say, look, man, everybody's broke just at a different level. Right. So don't assume just because they're there. I used to have friends that would ask if they can borrow my car because it was nicer than theirs to go car shopping. And I would say, I don't understand that. And they're like, well, we don't want to be treated like crap, like we couldn't buy. And I was like, you pull in something nicer, we all laugh and think you're upside down.
right?
Right? We're like, that guy's buried.
He's very
That car. They're not going to help you, but it's a totally different mindset from what the consumer versus somebody on the inside would be looking at.
right. Because how many times, I mean, every dealer has 1,000 stories about the dude that showed up in a ripped up t-shirt, you know, flip flops, dirty feet, and, you know, swim trunks, and stroked a check for, you know,
absolutely
$80,000
farmer
ride.
guy that gets out of the truck, and then when you finally get done, he goes back out to the truck and brings in a shoebox full of cash.
Right.
And you're like, everybody just, you can't afford to prejudge.
Yeah. No, I did. I've done.
No, that's
I did.
an excellent point, where you need to be thinking beyond where you're at.
Oh yeah.
That's ultimately, where are you headed? Because so many people are stuck in only right now, the immediate gratification.
Right. What's happening now? What happened before? Right. And that's why they're cherry picking that number.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, I laugh because if you look at it, right, the answer is get on there and don't think about it, just do it. But if you're sitting down, if you've got 10 other people that are at a dealership with you, if you're sitting with 4 other people in your BDC, you're all going to be waiting for the next phone call to come in, right? You have to be the fastest one on the phone, which means you don't dial out because you're waiting for an inbound call. So now you're going to sit there for a long time and not realize that if you had actually applied the lesson of going after it, again, if it's 75%, okay. If it said there's a 20% chance of doing it, doesn't matter. Get on the phone and do something, because I tell everybody, if you're going to be dialing out like you should be in a BDC, the goal is to do what? Set an appointment. So that means when the phone rings and your hand's already reaching to go dial out, you pick up that phone, you're still thinking appointment. So there is no distraction. There isn't anything. Right. It's just an effective use of your time, and how do you maximize everything, which is, again, where the plan came in.
Never let that phone hit the cradle.
No, not at all. Not at all.
So that was cool. What's your second?
My second one is, again, my hat was only on my BDC people and going forward, which was, it's the unsold follow-up one, which is Chapter 5, Converting the Unsold.
Converting the Unsold.
Yes, and it was starts on page 59. But what I put through is that though rarely utilized, this tactic truly works. After all, don't these people remain unsold simply because you didn't transact with them? They came in, they went to do something, whether it's internet, whether it was a phone call, whether it was an actual floor up, right? The fact that you failed to close an opportunity and then dropped or forgot about the lead does not mean that that person is no longer potentially in the market for your services, right? And it says on this one, right? It says, just because you quit following up or the client bought from someone else doesn't exclude that person as being a prospect for you now. Right? And one of the biggest takeaways on page 61 said, if the person has not bought from you, conduct a new fact finding as though you haven't before. Okay. Yeah. You will need to start this sale over from scratch. Do not assume what the client previously wanted is consistent with what he or she wants now. Ask them what's changed. Inquire to why he or she opted not to do anything at that time. And that's when I look at, so a lot of times the notes that are in the CRM almost hurt the BDC person doing follow-up, because they're looking at, they read the notes, and again, and somebody in the sales department has failed to leave proper notes, or they put in notes which is very emotionally based. It's up, right? And so we've had times where we go, you know what? CRMs don't let you erase things so people can't cheat. The bad part is that when you express all of your emotions into it, I can't go in and delete it.
Right.
So, and I can't afford to have somebody go snap a picture of it and put it on Yelp. So try to be professional the whole time you're leaving notes. But the BDC department has to pick it up and be an unbiased outside person and call into these people and realize that, okay, so the average number of dealerships people are going to now is 1.6. 2 years ago, it was 1.2, right? So we're getting better at pushing people off our lots.
Yeah.
And saying, go away, right? Back in what, 2000 when I got in, it was 5.
Right.
The average person went to 5 dealerships, right? Looking for someone to buy a car from. But now we're doing so much more online and so much more qualification before I come in. So if it's going to 1.6, right, that means it's a 50-50 chance, because if I round up 1.6 to 2. So these people are leaving. Where are they going? To the next place where they're going to buy. So we're pushing them off. So that means, to me, like, unsold matters. If somebody walks out, you should be calling back to the BDC going, I just put this lead in. This person just left. Get on the phone and call them.
And what's interesting about that too is I tease my clients a little bit about that. I'm like, hey, listen, it's whether it's 1.2 or 1.6. If you're the 0.2 or the 0.6, that means you totally blew it.
Yeah,
because if they're only going to 1.5, that means really they're only going to 1. And the first place they go is the place they're like, okay, if everything goes right, I'm doing a deal.
Right. And again, right, Glenn Ross, no one walks on the lot unless they plan on buying a car.
Right.
There isn't a let's go check out cars anymore.
No.
There's actual virtual test drives online.
Totally.
Right.
In fact,
you have people in there.
I think it was 14%, and this was in 2006 or 2007, 14% of buyers said they don't want to or need to drive the car in order to make a purchase or a purchase decision. And that was 5 years ago. So I can only assume that statistic has gone up.
Right. Well, Fiat actually has a program over back in Italy and everything there, that they have a virtual showroom, and the people have headgear on that has a camera here, right? And a little microphone or a little speaker that goes in and a mic. And the person stands in the showroom, you log on to the browser, and then you tell the person, can you go over to that car? And then the person walks over.
Wow.
And they go, can you open the center console? Can you do this? Can you do that? And they show them how everything works and do a virtual walk around with these people. And then they say, would you like to go for a ride? And they say yes. And they go, think, hit the button, and it runs a loop of the car driving around.
Holy smoke.
Right. And it's like, hey, we don't need you to come in anymore.
Right.
Like,
well, then
okay.
a Tesla dealership's in a mall.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yep.
There's definitely one. And Cerritos has a Porsche store or something in the middle of it.
Yeah.
Island has the Lincoln experience, right? So the answer is throw the cars out in front where nobody could sell it if they wanted to because the license isn't there, but the client gets to walk in with no pressure and get taught by a product specialist. And so we just need to convert that back to the dealership. There was a dealer in Texas that if you came in and you wanted to leave and you said, okay, we're not buying today, and you were leaving, they would give you a half gallon of ice cream. Right? Because what do you have to do now once you got your half gallon of ice cream?
You have to go home.
You have to go home to put it in the freezer. So they know they just bought themselves 15, 20 minutes to call you back and bring you back into the dealership with whatever was there.
That is
and
brilliant.
You going to the next place. Yeah.
Brilliant.
So,
the other thing too on this converting the unsold that I think is valuable is there is a, maybe for lack of a better word, an immense level of humility that is required to do that.
Yes.
To really like say, hey, I dropped the ball with this guy, and then confront that.
Absolutely.
It may not necessarily be with him. It's just making the call. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Most of the sales department won't do it, which is why we have to implement the BDC doing it, because the salesperson looks and goes, oh, that's the jerk who told me no yesterday.
Right.
Again, we're back into the emotion part of it. And then you go, okay, that person may have went to 3 other dealerships and heard the same thing. So now you're not being a sleazy car guy. You were being somebody up front, but they didn't buy it either one. They have to readjust in their head. Maybe I don't go for the Explorer. I go to an Escape because I'm there. Maybe it's an Edge that fits, but whatever it is on whatever brand. Yeah. But again, I'm now flipping myself around because I now heard it from more than one person. I still haven't bought, but now I'm rekindling everything. But I put in there and I do when I meet with my teams, I tell them we have a PR script for public relations. So we call in and we ask the person, we go, oh, you know what, David, I know that you were in the dealership yesterday. Were you here for service, parts, or sales? We know you were there for sales because the salesperson logged everything.
Yeah.
So you go, oh, I was here for sales. We go, oh, great. Did you end up buying a car? So I don't sound like I'm even working at the dealership.
Yeah.
And I say, and they go, no, I didn't. They go, oh my goodness. Well, I report directly back to the general manager of the store, right? Can you tell me what was the one reason why you didn't?
Yeah. Why not?
Now I'm going to go back and I tell them, your job, problem solve. Find out what it is that they're not doing, that we didn't do, right?
Yeah.
Sometimes it's the salesperson smelled like onions from whatever lunch we bought that day, right? Or they're smoking and they smelled like cigarettes and the person didn't want to go on the demo drive with them.
Smell like cigarettes and shawarma.
Yes, exactly. Exactly. And so it's, again, some of these things are such easy, quick fixes.
Yeah.
That we can figure it out, but now I can get somebody to come back in, right? And that's to me the BDC's biggest job. I tell everybody, I go, if you're going to drop me back into a BDC to work, right? Inbound phone calls are great, but I'm going after unsold showroom traffic because those people have shown the most commitment,
right,
to anybody that's there. And if your average internet person is going to be buying 3 to 6 months from now instead of the same month they emailed you, who's following up? These are all unsold people. Get out there, start dialing.
And I think the stats, what, like 78-ish% of all B-backs do the deal?
Yes, absolutely.
So if I just get you to come back.
Right. Odds are in my favor that you
yeah.
It's a show and a sold.
Really good.
BDC rep. Yes.
Yeah, really good.
Right, I've rambled enough. David, give me your second one.
So it actually goes hand in hand. I think it's pretty cool. So with converting the unsold, and I think what we really touched on is the fact that the way people shop and buy, very different now.
Yes, absolutely.
It's just in good or bad, what it is what it is that the car itself has been so commoditized that Grant's chapter called Delivering at Wow Levels.
Oh, that was on my other one that I took away.
Yeah. So I'm glad I brought it up.
Number 4. Yeah.
You know, so he, on pages 84 and 85, the first thing he says, and this is even more challenging in a BDC department, in an auto industry, or in an internet department, the first thing he says is an important rule to remember: price is never the way to create a wow experience.
Correct. Wow, that's great.
Reducing price or cost does not add value or solve problems. It merely reduces the cost of the product and can actually diminish perceived value.
Correct.
So here we are, though, in an industry where, you know, dollar over invoice, true car, right? Guaranteed pricing, lowest pricing at 10 grand off, you know, a Chevy. You know, so like there's all of this stuff that we market out there.
Right.
But at the end of the day, the only reason someone's going to buy something is because they fell in love or it solves a problem.
Right. And they're going to be happy if the value of the product is perceived as more than the expense of the product.
But the experience at the dealership is really I think the differentiating factor. It's how they're treated, it's how they're received, it's how everything, how the emails are presented. Grant said the book, Sell or Be Sold, he says, are you a Ritz-Carlton or a Holiday Inn?
Right.
So it's like, what kind of an experience are we giving to the customer to where they're like, wow, where price isn't the issue anymore. It's like, this solves my problem. I get my 3 rows. I've got the safety I need. I have this, that, and the other thing. And that dude is amazing. That's where I want to put my money. That's who gets it.
Yes. So I'll throw in my 2 cents on the wow thing, because again, that was my number 4 that I was fighting back and forth between this and my number 3. But on that one, stop and understand that everybody is controlled by the digital gun, right? Yelp and Google that are there. And so the wow experience gets somebody to leave you a review that's going to be 4 and 5 stars. Okay. If you think about it, if you went through a drive-through today, so you go through a drive-through, you order at the speaker, you pull up to the window, you pay, they hand you your food, and then you pull forward, look inside the bag, and everything is correct. Do you stop and go, woo, yeah, I'm leaving them a Yelp review?
No.
No. Why? Because they met your expectations. right? So you did what I thought you would. There is nothing there. There's no energy in the fact that I got what that I'm satisfied. There's no energy.
Right.
I just feel satisfied. If you did something at the end of the day, you go, oh, I had a great day. You don't go, I'm going to go run around the block. I don't go say I'm going to go do all of these extra things. So if I'm looking at that, my answer is going to be, okay, if I got a bad experience, what's the first thing that happens?
Oh, they tell everybody.
I get angry. And you see these people's fingers just going away when they're starting to write something, angry. But anger is a fueling emotion. It gets you excited and it gets you energy. There's adrenaline pumping.
Yeah.
Right? Because it's the fight situation because I'm upset. So it's very easy to find the energy to leave a bad review. There isn't one in a good job, but there is enough energy created in a wow.
Yeah.
Right? That's going to give me the energy to go, you need to be recognized for what you do because you exceeded my expectations, not met them.
Right. You want to drive them to Google and to Yelp, you're going to exceed their expectation one way or the other, either in a great way or the other.
Right. Either that, you took him to the penthouse or the basement.
Yeah. Right.
Where did you take him, right? Anybody in between, there's no wow.
Yeah. Right. So, that's awesome. All right. What was your third?
Third one, my favorite subject goes right along with you, which is the importance of price. Chapter 8. Again, if you're sitting down, and I get this from internet departments all the time too, and the BDC is, you say, okay, why do people call us? And they say, price. I'm like, wow, we all used to recognize that they just want to make sure that the vehicle is here.
Yeah.
Right. That's the first thing, but that's fallen now into the fact that everybody's calling you about price. Right. And so in page 91 it says, price is always a very sensitive issue, especially during times of economic contraction. And you're constantly getting hammered with the notion. It's the notion, okay, that people don't have money and your weak competitors are lowering prices as a solution to their tougher environment, which goes back to what you were just talking about, the wow factor, which I believe is the next chapter, right? Yeah. So the wow factor, what did you do in the wow factor? You gave an experience that was better. But I tell people all the time, I say, look, if I put a special price up online, so we got a price out there, and the person's going to call you and go, I want it better than what's there. So depending on the tact of the BDC person, right? If they're not tactful, we don't say it this way. But my answer is always, it takes a lot of advertising dollars to advertise all over the place to get people to come in. Does that make sense to you? That we got to spend a lot of money to do that? Would it make sense for us to actually spend all that money and put our second best price out there?
Yeah.
Right? And we're just going to keep this one over here and go, no, this is our best price, but we're going to hide this one here in case somebody wants to ask us for it.
Yeah.
Right? It doesn't make sense. So when you explain it to somebody, you're like, guys, this is what we're advertising for. And I always tell them, I say, look, I know they're asking they want a discount. It would be stupid for them not to. We've trained the public that they're going to get a discount. We've taught them. Guess what? You know what? Before, in the 90s, no one knew what an invoice was.
Yeah.
Right? And then we just started telling everybody after that, the late 90s, we're like, hey, you guess what? How about if I show you my invoice? What if I show you my invoice? You're like, where did we get so weak in the sales department that the answer was, please just cover my cost?
Yeah.
Right?
I'll split the whole back with you. Just do something.
Exactly. And you stop and you say, well, exactly. I tell people this, go to McDonald's, right? McDonald's is a multi-million-dollar business ran by 19-year-olds. Okay. Go in there. They're completely systematized. Walk up to them and say, I'll take a number one, but I'll give you $3. Right? They wouldn't even know what to do with you.
No.
For one, they don't even know what the number one is. They got to look back at the board and go, oh, the Big Mac meal? Got it. Okay. Right? But to them, their answer is, there's no negotiating. You call the manager. The manager's like, what are you talking about? Why are you negotiating?
Yeah.
So why would we sit down and totally devalue our own product?
Right.
And if they're reaching out to call you based off of an advertised price, that price itself is already good enough for them. They're just nudging you for the rest. And the answer is can you do what it says here, which is hold the value of your product? Why do we have MSRP on cars? Why is it a joke at this point?
Yeah.
Right? It doesn't make any sense that we go, oh, hey, guess what? It's this is what it should be priced, but we know that's not real.
They should drop the S.
Yes. Yeah, it's just
It should just be manufacturer's retail price. It should not be
right.
suggested.
It's not suggested. Yeah,
We had it's the 10 commandments, not the 10 suggestions.
Exactly.
So like, I don't know why we even need that word.
Right. We suggested it be that way, but we decided not to. And again, in today's world, the difference between invoice and MSRP has completely shrunk. It's not like you have all this extra money that we could say, let me discount something.
Like, what's the room in a GMC Terrain? It's like $59.
Yeah. I look and I go, look at if you go into like a Nissan Sentra, there's a $200 difference between what you pay for and what the window sticker is. And somebody's going to go, I want $2,000 off. And you're like, okay, I'm already $1,800. It doesn't matter where holdback was. Doesn't matter what anything is. I'm definitely in the hole. And what business today is still in business by selling things for less than what they paid for it?
Right.
And in business.
And in the book, he talks about that. The number one reason a business fails is not because it's undercapitalized. It's because you're not selling enough,
right,
in quantity at margins high enough to stay solvent.
Right. And again, if you're in automotive space and the manufacturer is telling us what is actually the margin, and then we all jump on to different providers, right? Somebody that's maybe a false car or something, and then we go to them and say it's a race to the bottom.
Right.
Who can go the furthest back of cost to gain that unit? And it's like, it just doesn't make any sense. And we haven't even got smart enough to say, hey, what if we all just sold it at the MSRP or MRP? Right?
Yeah.
What if we just all said this is what we do? It would take all the pain out of car buying. It would take the negotiation, which everybody says is their most painful part. Right? It's like, okay.
How would you make that shift?
So I would have to be delivering a wow experience for one.
Yeah.
Right? I have to be delivering better than what anybody else is doing. Because if price was the only issue, Nordstrom's wouldn't be there, right? Needless markup or Neiman Marcus, however you want to say it, right? Wouldn't be in business today.
Well, I look at things
just about the service, yeah.
If you look at things with like an obnoxious margin, like obnoxious sunglasses, the movies, Disneyland,
the movies, yeah.
Right, Disneyland, they're like, we're raising our prices, $20 for everybody, and people go and then they're still selling out every day.
Yep.
So it's the experience.
Somebody sneaks food into the movie theater, but more people stand in line and pay $8 for a bucket of popcorn.
Right, and the whole time they're bitching about it. That's a ripoff. They're ripping us off. Hi, 2 please.
Yes.
Come on.
And they're not sitting back going, ooh, I want to offer them less.
Right.
Right. So if every other retail establishment can hold their value, then yeah. Am I going to miss some because it's $8 for a bucket of popcorn? Yes. Am I going to win more than I lose? Yes. Right. And if I need to, we get a mobile app so I can actually steal all of your info and know it, and I'll send you a coupon for $1 off, but I still got you to spend $7 on something that cost me $1.
And the movie guy's better at bumping people than most car guys.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yes.
Right.
And again, we tend to, but remember, we're on the other side in the car business. We're getting punched all day long. Right. So we just get there and we're like, look, if I don't fight you, can we just get it over sooner?
Right.
Right. Instead of me saying, hey, guess what? The factory's trained me. My management's trained me. My dealership has invested in me. And instead of using all of it, I'm just going to say, could you please stop? From a guy who's going to come in and buy a car every 3.5 years.
Right. So there's a method. I mean, if your process is dialed in, none of that shit, pardon my French, should be happening to you. And if it is, it just means you need training.
Right. And again, a lot of it starts with your BDC person. Are they telling you that there's a chance that, of course, you can get a better price? Right. Are we emailing the internet department and they immediately send back a quote at $2,000 below cost? But nobody ever called me. Nobody ever texted me. So they treated me like I'm a grinder of a price shopper. Right.
Yeah, they made a massive assumption based on
this guy's calling about this. But one of the things I love the most, we go online and you put something on. So I'll ask you, David, we haven't rehearsed. We know this, right? If you want to go buy a watch, so you go online, you start looking for a watch. As you go through, you see the watch. This store A has it for X amount of dollars. Store B has it for that same X amount of dollars with an extra $100 off. Where are you going to go buy it?
I'm gonna lean towards the cheaper one.
You're going to leave. Why? Right. So then, but would it make sense if store B had 5 watches that were very similar? One of them was $100 less. Would it make sense for you to pick one of the other ones that is $100 more to find out if they still have it?
Right. Well, I need to know what each watch has now. I've got right because choices support decision making.
All identical. There's 5 watches, all identical, and one of them has a $100 discount. Which one do you want?
Well, honestly, that would make me skeptical.
Okay, and you would pick up the phone and call and go, "What's the catch on this one for
Right.
$100 less?"
Well, it doesn't have a minute hand.
Right, exactly. But again, look at all of your dealership websites.
Yeah.
If I click on something and I now go, okay, I'm going to go and click on all the Dodge Durangos. And then I'll sort price low to high. The first one says what? Ad car, $5,000 off. It's da-da-da-da-da, but it's the MSRP of $38,520. You go to the one underneath it, same color, same options, MSRP $38,520. And then we get upset at the dealership and go, why do they always call about the one that's $5,000 less? Well, who wouldn't?
Right.
Who wouldn't?
It's just logical.
It just makes what we do as human beings. So
and that's the purpose of discounting in your ad is to generate traffic, get interest.
Right. I want to, again, I now have to compete to get people into my store, right? Why did I put a BDC together? To get people off the couch, to get them inside so my sales department can sell them.
Yeah.
And so, but why get upset? I have some dealerships where they yell at the internet department because all you do is bring in all the ad cars. And I'm like, well, who do you think would? Right? We only do 100% digital advertising. That's the only place you can find our ads is on the web. And then I get mad at the department that handles the web leads. Right? No, their job is to generate traffic, generate people in the store, and give me units.
Yeah.
That's their job. Don't post it online with the price if you don't want to sell it at that much.
I love how this has been such an organic conversation because it goes right into
your third?
My third. And it's perfect because so Grant, it's not written in stone in this book, but he talks about the solution to all problems in sales is a full pipeline.
Yep.
And when he wrote this book, right after when I first started working with Grant, which was in 2011, he's on the phone or on a Skype call with a client. He's talking about each one of his books, right? And he pulls up this one. And he goes, "This is a book about prospecting. That's all this book is. It's about generating traffic. It's about getting in front of more people. This is a prospecting book." And so, and when I first heard that, it sort of changed. I'd already read it like twice. So I went back and I read it again from that mindset, and it changed everything for me. And so with that, he talks a lot about, this is the power schedule to advance and conquer. But in it, he gives a formula. It says time times actions equals measure of advance. So for somebody in a BDC department, how far do you want to go? And we've already been talking about Outflow being senior to Inflow and massive quantities of action and not waiting for the phone to ring, but outflow and make the call. So he says to the degree to which you advance is limited only by the amount of time and action you invest.
Absolutely.
And the idea of an investment implies ROI.
Correct.
Right. So what that ROI for you would be appointments, and then appointments that show, and then car deals. So he says the person who willingly swings the bat has a better chance at success than the person who refuses to swing. Any efforts, and this is where this is why I love being so organic. Any efforts, even poorly executed ones, will aid your progress towards advancing and conquering, especially if you make them regularly and follow them up with subsequent action. Then the last thing that I highlighted was there seems to be a lot of people who aren't willing to expend energy without complete assurance of usually immediate or short-term payoff.
Right.
An attitude like this only guarantees the demise of your economy.
Right. The difference between a sales professional and somebody who's just a salesperson.
Yeah.
Right. The sales professional makes a sale today, wanting the future business of friends, family, right? All the referral business, and them again in California every 3.5 years
Right.
is the average. So that's what they're doing, where the rest of the other person is hit it, quit it. And I don't care. I probably won't even be here when they come back. I
Yeah.
may not even be here when they come back for their first service visit.
Right.
So,
Possible.
absolutely.
So yeah, I mean, doing something is better than doing nothing. And
Doing something with intent is even better. Yeah.
right. Make the call, send the email, do the video, don't get all hung up in all of the minute details and, the 75% chance versus 20% chance, or just
dial.
make the call.
Get on the phone. BDC, you don't have to meet with the people face to face unless they show up for the appointment and you say, hi, here's your sales associate, and be done. But
Yeah.
you're protected by the phone and the computer. So just jump and do it. Average car buying experience is still 3 hours and 45 minutes. It's been the same thing for the last 20 years.
What would need to happen to get that sucker down to like 45?
Yeah, I got it to 1 hour and 20 minutes at one of the stores that I ran, but it was a lot of process. There was no deviation. There was no anything. When you got a deal done, as soon as you hit the button to send it to finance, you then logged it up on our sales board. The sales board was a Google Doc shared across all the departments. And so up on the sales board for the customer showed the stock number, their name, their city. That's what you saw on the television. There's still 8 other columns that weren't showed on the sales department screen, but were on there. So
Yeah.
as soon as you typed it in, you punched in the time. Well, the guy in the wash rack was watching that computer too, the supervisor of the wash rack, and he said, hey, this one just got sold. So we have a red Wrangler that's coming back here that's going to need to get gassed and detailed before it comes up. And we got 15 minutes to get the detail done and be out there getting the gas after that. So as soon as you did, it was all processed. It was all processed. We wrapped a rag around the window or around the mirror, right? We had rags that we used, and then we had the delivery towels. Delivery towel was the white towel,
Yeah.
right? That didn't have lint, so more like the cloth baby diaper kind of soft detail rags. And we wrap it around the driver's mirror. And then when the porter brought up the car that was done, he'd pull it up right out in front of the door for the delivery. Salesperson would grab that rag and get all the water that's dripping down out of the mirrors. That happen every time you wash a car. So they would go wipe that down and they would go polish up what's there. So as the customer came out of finance, we'd walk them right to the door and there'd be a guy out there polishing up your car.
Just
Wow,
on a side note, what's your take on the home delivery concept?
The only downside on the home delivery thing is that you're off site, grants them the cooling off period. And in California, we don't, you'd have to buy that on a used car, but it doesn't come on a new car.
Right.
Like my wife's dealership, they offer it on everything. They don't care. They don't even charge it. So the answer is, if you're not happy, bring it back. But if that's the case, then yeah, go deliver it. Deliver it to their house. I still say we're at least another 8 years away from the whole Carvana model working, and Amazon and Google getting to the point where they're playing the game and actually you can go click, click, click and deliver the car to your house, right? Because used cars, I don't think we'll ever get there.
Yeah.
Right? Everything's unique. Everyone's a unicorn. So you don't know if it's going to be right for you. You don't know if it drives right, but you can take assurance with a new car that it just may happen.
We are in the add to cart economy. That's what I call it.
Yeah, I agree.
What was your third?
My third one was the price.
Price. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
So
understanding what price means. Yeah.
I think that's so like we everybody, consumers, salespeople, we all get hung up on it.
Yeah. Absolutely.
And we don't need to.
I sat and I trained a dealership. I was listening to some phone calls, so I grabbed the phone calls off the recording system, put it down, and I bring the internet department in. And I'm like, okay, hey, do you guys remember this call? And the guy's in there that did it. He's like, oh yeah, that guy totally was grinding me on price. And I said, oh, okay. So I pull up the call and I go, I want you at this point, right? When you hear him grind you, I want you to raise your hand, so we all know when he was grinding you. And he's like, okay. Go through, the person's talking on the phone. Guy goes, so what's the price of that car? And the guy says, well, we're asking this much, but since it's the end of the month, you can probably get a couple grand off of that. That's what the sales guy says to the customer.
He's grinding himself.
And the customer goes, okay, and just repeats back the price, 37,000, couple grand off. And then he goes, do you have a new one? Do you have a new one? Because I don't like that color. And the guy goes, oh, I have a new one, but I mean, you don't want that one. That one's like 50 grand. And the guy goes, new one, 50 grand. That's all the guy says. He's just repeating back what this guy's saying. And he's like, and he goes, oh yeah, so you got all your information? Okay, thanks, bye. And the customer goes, okay, bye, and hangs up. And I was like, you didn't raise your hand once. Why didn't you raise your hand?
Yeah.
He's like, he goes, what? I'm like, you gave away $2,000 right off the top, right? And then you told him 50 was too much for the car brand new. What? Why are you selling?
Yeah.
And you're not. Do you hear that? And again, everybody in the room, I was like, now how many of you are guilty of this? And because my belief, right, because it's me, I believe everything's about price, then I in turn make it all about price. If I believe everybody calling is looking for a discount, then I throw the discount out before it even gets there. And if somebody wants to grind you, because now this is what we failed to learn over here, especially in California. If I go throw a really low price online, right, throw a big dealer discount and I throw it out there, that's the starting point for the person who shows up to negotiate from. They're not looking at us and saying, oh, by the way, you've already took the pain out of negotiating. They're not doing that. They come in and they go, I still want to, right? X generation, the answer is let's go haggle.
Yeah.
Let's go have a good time. Let's go do that, right? Every time I go buy anything, I always joke. And I took my son to get pants the other day. He's like, here's this. I'm like, great, grab 4 pair. I don't want to come back, right? Walk up to the thing. The lady that helped us, she goes, ding, ding, ding. She rings them in. I go, oh, and don't forget, we've spent a lot of time together, almost like we're family. So I get the employee discount too, right? Friends and family, you can share it with them. And she looked at me and started laughing. And she goes, you know what? Yes, I'll give you the, and she goes, punches it in.
Yeah.
I'm getting 20% off of something because I made her laugh and I asked.
Right.
Where a lot of times they just look at me and they go, that was funny. No.
Yeah.
And they go through, but every once in a while it works. So if I'm going to do it, and as salespeople, if we want to grind on everything that happens, then why do we get upset when a client wants to do it?
Right. And it doesn't mean they're a mooch.
No, but we want to elevate ourselves, right?
Right.
So I got to put them down for doing something instead of going, they do exactly what I'd be doing too. So it's true. They're not.
This was awesome.
Trying to grind it. So, but I had fun, David.
Yeah. Right. That was pretty cool. I love your 3.
And your 3 were pretty spot on.
Right. Very, like, this was very organic. I'm glad we didn't split it up.
Right. Well, exactly. We were gonna do that originally. For those listening and watching, we originally said, okay, we'll do one interview you, one interview me, and we'll go through. And then we both just said, hey, let's just throw it out there. Let's just go.
So for my listeners, people that are listening to me, tell everybody a little bit about you, and if they want to keep listening to you, how they can tune into your deal.
Oh, fantastic. So Joe Ingram, I have a podcast everywhere that you find podcasts at Sales Genius. That's out there. So that's the easiest way to find me. All my contact info is in the podcast. So I train companies on making the virtual customer into an actual or virtual prospect into a paying customer. So
virtual prospect into paying customer. I love that.
Right. So get them off your social media into a social meeting so you can sit down and have a conversation and sell something. But
love that.
That's what I do. And for those of you that are on the Sales Genius podcast, you've been listening to my co-host and friend, David Bradley. David Bradley, tell everybody how they find you.
All right. So I'm a senior sales and marketing manager with Grant Cardone, and I run the Cardone Solutions podcast. The purpose of that podcast is really just to help disseminate Grant's content. I said 90% of what we do is 100% free. And so what we put out there, I want to make sure that the people that are tuning in are able to not just have it, but really leverage it and use it and get something truly out of it, you know?
Fantastic. And you offer the double your money back guarantee for all the free stuff, right?
Amen to that.
Yep. I agree. Makes perfect sense.
Heck yeah. So yeah, it's the same thing as you. Anywhere you can find a podcast, I'm up there. If you just search Cardone Solutions, it's there.
Right. So you're the direct link to Uncle G.
I am the direct link to Uncle G. Yeah.
So I was so glad when we talked about this book, because I was like, hey, look. And I opened it up today and I was like, and Grant signed it.
That's some autography.
Yes. I was like, I like this one. It says Joe Rocket. So I'm
Rocket.
okay with it. But I was excited.
I have two versions of this. One is one that I've got that's fallen apart and highlighted and pages full. And then I got one. Yeah, and then I got one with some ink on it from Grant.
Fantastic. Keep the pristine copy. Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, mine's beat up. It's just, it was funny when you said it. I'm like, let me open it up. And I'm like, I still have things, little cards in here to say, this is the page I wanted to see, and just way too many Post-its and stuff. But I don't believe in shelf help. I believe in self-help, right? Get in there and actually read it. Most people buy it, put it on a shelf, and leave it there.
Yeah.
And the shelf is very waiting for its potential. Yeah.
You know, we sort of talked about it, but I think, you know, one of Grant's philosophies that I really push myself every day to be better at is called the winner's exchange. So it's like, it's one thing to exchange with somebody where, you know, I give them a car, they give me a bunch of money, and then we're done, right? We sort of alluded to that, but the winner's exchange is where not just did they get the car, but they use it, they drive it, and they freaking love it, you know? Absolutely. And for us, on our side of things, it's not did we just give you a book, but you read the book and you used it, and it improved your life in a measurable way.
Absolutely. Someone just asked that the other day, what's the favorite thing about what you do? And right, I train companies and I train their staff, right, to sell things more. And so when I look at it, I said, my favorite thing to do is sit down and train somebody. And as I'm training them, you see that little spark go in their eye, and you know you just changed them forever. Because you just changed the total outlook, and then they saw it and they realize it, and now from this point forward, they can't go back to the way they were thinking.
Yeah, it's impossible.
Like, when I see that, I'm like, done. Okay, I'm good. Now, if I can do it multiple times in the same training, even better, right?
Right.
Watch their heads explode in front of you. So.
A couple of years ago, I think it was in December. I got a call, but it was this young kid. He's up in Canada. He newlywed. He's going into his second year of marriage. He's got 2 kids, one before they got married, one after, and he says, hey, listen, I was at another dealership and I was not figuring this out, and I got fired back in July, and I came over here and wasn't really clicking, and then you guys got on our training, or we got on your training program, and I started listening to Grant in October. In October, I had already decided there'd be no tree. There would be no presence under said tree, right? I was just worried about food, not even rent at that point. I was just like, how do I just survive and feed my kids?
Wow.
And he calls me in December and he goes, that was my thought in October, but it's December. I've got a tree. There's presents under it. Rent's paid. Food's in the cupboard, right? And like when you get that call,
right?
I mean, forget about it. That's why you do what you do.
It's the validation of what you did and what's out there. Yeah. I agree. And again, changed forever.
Yeah.
Changed forever.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, this has been great, man. Thank you so much for doing it. Appreciate it.
I appreciate you as well, David.
And look
Glad
forward.
We got connected.
I know, me too. And I think we should do this again.
I agree. We're always here.
Yeah. All right.
Bye.
All right. Hey, what a great conversation was that, right? So cool sitting down with Joe Ingram. I can't wait to do it again. So remember, here's some of my takeaways after listening to it again for a second time. Don't just go to work, right? You want to go to work for your goals, and you want to go to work for your dreams. And when you do, it enables you to literally start reactivating those past clients, start converting the unsold, start delivering at these wow levels, right? Because you're not just going to work now to punch a clock. You're going to work for a purpose way bigger than you, okay? And then that also empowers you to take massive levels of action to achieve your goals. And now you don't have to get all hung up on price, okay? Remember, the only reason people are going to buy something is to solve a problem. So when you start solving problems and you start doing that at wow levels, you'll do exactly what Grant talks about in the book. If you're not first, you're last. You will dominate your market and you will dominate your competition. Now, if you have a sales team and you need to help them embrace these concepts, the best place to do that is at cardoneondemand.com. I'm happy to get 7 days free access for you so you can use it with your sales team in real time. I will show you on a very short call 2 things you can do with our program during the 7-day trial period to get every salesperson an extra 2 to 3 deals during that time. Best way to get signed up for that, visit cardoneondemand.info. That gets you hooked up on your 7-day free trial. Thank you so much for watching, and remember the words of Grant Cardone: be great, because nothing else pays.